Hi, I'm Adam in Wales and this is my board gaming vlog, and this isn't actually a vlog, this is a review. And I don't normally do reviews, I did them many years ago, but this was a game which I haven't really seen anyone talking about, and it's one of those rare instances where I walk into a board game shop, happen to be in Germany so there's no surprises here, and I see a game which I haven't actually heard of. I'm quite clued up about what's going on in the industry, what's coming up, but I hadn't heard of Die Tavern im Tiefenthal, the new game from Wolfgang Warsch, and it leapt out at me because of his name, but also because it came from the team at Schmidt Spiele, who made his game Quacks of Quedlinburg that won the Kennerspiel des Jahres last year. And Quacks of Quedlinburg was the biggest hit in my house last year. We absolutely love that game. This has the same graphical styling as that. It's got deck building, where Quacks of Quedlinburg had bag building, which are very similar things, and it's got that alliteration, Quacks of Quedlinburg, Taverns of Tiefenthal. It'll be interesting to see if anybody does an English release of this, whether they keep that alliteration or whether we end up with the translation, the Taverns of the Deep Valley. I prefer the Taverns of Tiefenthal, Quacks of Quedlinburg. I like that whole sort of German feel about it. Let's have a little look at how the game plays and then I'll tell you what I think about it. In the Taverns of Tiefenthal, each player represents an innkeeper in an oldie-worldy German village. They each have a personal player board with reversible tiles, so the inn can be upgraded as the game progresses. And each player also has a small deck of cards, which are personal to them. The deck contains all the inn's regular customers and all of the staff. Each inn starts with only 3 tables, and at the start of each round, all players simultaneously turn over cards from the top of the deck, placing them into their inn until all of the tables are filled with guests. Once this happens, the player must stop revealing cards. And once all the cards have been revealed in all the players' inns, then each player rolls 4 white dice. These are passed around the table, with each player taking 1 die at a time in a simple circular draft. If players have revealed waitresses, then they will have additional dice allocated to them, which do not form part of the draft pool. Once players have selected their pool of dice, they're placed onto the guest cards and various areas of the board in order to power various actions. So placing on a guest or a chest generates money. Placing on the supplier or on a barrel generates beer. And placing on the monk moves you along the monastery track, which offers up extra rewards at key points along the track. Now, players can use their beer to attract new customers, and sometimes those have an immediate benefit, giving you an additional card or killing off one of your weaker guests. But often, they're simply upgraded versions of your starting guests with more money to spend in your establishment. Players can also spend gold to hire new staff. So dishwashers allow you to alter your dice results, adding 1 to the pip value. Suppliers increase the amount of beer produced by each die that you place. Beer merchants will give you beer even if you don't place a dice. And tables increase your capacity to hold more guests in your tavern. Alternatively, you can spend gold to upgrade your inn, giving you more tables, more storage to keep gold or beer between rounds, or giving you staff members who are always going to turn up regardless of your card draw. And you get discounts on these upgrades if you have lots of that particular type of staff member in play at the time when you upgrade. And when you upgrade your inn, you also gain a noble guest card, who's worth lots of victory points at the end of the game. And the great thing about nobles is that they all sit around a single table. They love to share, so they aren't much use to you, but they don't take up much space. Any newly acquired cards are always placed on top of your personal deck, so they're always available in the very next round. And at the end of each round, players discard all the cards they've placed in that round onto their own personal discard pile, and then the whole sequence begins again. Once a player's personal draw deck is empty, then that player's discard pile is shuffled and it becomes a new deck, so that customers and staff return to the inn round after round. And at the start of each new round, all players are rewarded either with a new card or with a counter guest. Now, this is a single-use ability, whereby a player can later discard this token to either cancel and retake their turn if they're unhappy with the cards they've drawn, or advance 1 space on a monastery track. After 8 complete rounds, the players count up the victory points shown on all of their cards, and the highest scorer wins. Okay, so it's no surprises here. I love this game. I love the interaction between the mechanics and the theme. I love the fact that, you know, you really feel like you have a role here. I know who I am. I am the innkeeper here. I'm trying to keep my staff coming back. I'm trying to make sure they turn up. I'm trying to fill up my tables, but I don't want them clogged up with, you know, the old men, the old women who aren't spending very much. They're not really generating much, just taking up space. What I want to do is clear them out and bring in the new breed who's going to generate me lots of money. Sometimes that means bringing in a particularly mean individual who's going to kill off one of my regular customers. I love that. If your staff don't turn up to work, if you're not drawing them from the deck first, and then your tables fill up with guests before you've got any staff, well then you're not going to generate very much. But if your staff all get in there early, you have a good round, then you're going to generate loads from your customers, loads of money, loads of beer, and that's going to attract more customers. And they're not just appearing in your pub once, they're coming back time and time again. They're regulars. And actually you can spend money to upgrade your pub, make it a more attractive establishment, and then you're going to have some really loyal staff members who are going to be there round after round, no matter what you do, and everything just gets better and better. So the sense of progression and story in this game is great. The mechanisms, though, they're easy, they're intuitive. If you've played deck building games before, this will immediately all make sense to you. And even if you haven't, this is not a complicated game. It's a step up from Quacks of Quedlinburg, but not a big one, and it's a longer game than Quacks of Quedlinburg. I love this game, particularly at 2 players. I've played it at 4, I've played it at 3. At 4, yeah, it can drag on a little bit too long, particularly when you've got new players. You might be looking at an hour to an hour and a half for that first game. But once people get familiar with it, you're going to be doing this in 45 minutes or so. And with 2 players, you're looking really at a 30 to 40 minute game, and it works really, really well. Now, there are modules that you can add in this game, so you can increase the complexity, and I'd strongly advise that you do that as you become more experienced with the game. Let's have a little look at what the modules add. Module 2 introduces schnapps tokens. These are handed out at the start of some rounds of the game, and in other rounds entertainers are going to appear in your tavern, and you can pay these entertainers with schnapps, and they're going to give you big rewards. Lots of beer, lots of money, free upgrades, that sort of thing. Module 3 introduces bards and a reputation track. Now, players must balance how much beer and money they generate each round, because the lower amount is the number of spaces that the player is going to move on the reputation track. And this track awards victory points, schnapps tokens, and other bonuses. Bards are a new type of staff member who increase your reputation whenever they arrive in your inn. Module 4 introduces a variable setup for the players, so each player can select one starting setup for their own board and deck from a choice of 3. Hence, players start from a different position, and this drives alternate strategies throughout the game. Module 5 introduces a guest book. Whenever a player purchases a new guest card, a corresponding space in the guest book is covered dependent on the amount of beer spent on the guest. And covering spaces gives awards, or it advances you on the reputation track. But if you cover a complete row or a complete column, then you start to gain these high-scoring noble guests. So those modules add options, they add choices, strategic choices, they change the nature of the game, and it really feels like you're playing the full game once you get to about the 4th module. That 5th module with the guest book, maybe that, I'm not sure, maybe that feels a step too far for me, maybe that feels like I've got a bit too much to be thinking about, but I can see other people really enjoying those strategic options that it adds. Certainly it adds downtime, the game gets longer with each module you add, and I think with more than 3, once you get to 4 players, you're not going to be wanting to use all those modules because things just get slow, unless you're with a really experienced team. I love the thematic stuff that goes on with those modules. Again, the fact that we're bringing these entertainers in, but we're not really paying them properly, we're just feeding them schnapps, and when we feed them schnapps, they do wonderful things for us, which generate more regular customers and bring in more staff. I think that's great. I love this reputation track, that idea of no longer can I just hone in on the beer, I've got to balance the beer and the money, because whichever I've got less of is going to be what's going to increase my reputation, and reputation ultimately is going to generate nobles, which are going to generate victory points. The variable setup means you can give yourself a challenge. Some of those setups seem really tough and other ones seem a little bit simpler, but you can choose which one you want to go for. So you can almost handicap yourself really if you know you're particularly good at the game. And then that guest book, that's where the real thinking comes in, and lots of strategic choices that get added in there. Do you want to focus on that guest book and gathering lots of different types of guests, regular guests, just to fill up the guest book? Or are you actually neglecting other areas of the game if you do so? I mean, this is a masterclass in design. There's nothing really I can fault here. The drafting of the dice, at first I was thinking, why are we passing them around? Sometimes those dice, they fall off those little coasters that we're passing around. But actually that eliminates the need for a start player in that round. It makes everything simpler. And it's familiar from games like Sushi Go and Seven Wonders, where we're passing around a deck of cards and taking one at a time. So it's a nice little drafting system. We've got something similar to the Quacks of Quedlinburg thing, where at the start of each round everybody gets a bit of a bonus. That's really nice and intuitive and simple. There's a lot of Dominion recalled here with that pool of resources that are always available, so we can buy from that and choose, do I want to focus on beer generation or do I want to focus on money, generating extra money? All of that stuff's great. Yeah, I can't fault it. I think this is going to be an enormous hit. I think you're going to be hearing a lot more about it, so I really wanted to get in there and be the first one to talk about it, in English at least. There's probably some German reviews out there. But yeah, this is a great one. I hope somebody picks it up for American distribution. I have absolutely no doubt that they will. It was North Star Games that picked up Quacks of Quedlinburg, so let's hope that they do it, because they always do a great job. But actually, Schmidt Spiele was this is a rare example of Schmidt Spiele distributing a game in the UK, so if you're in the UK like me, then hopefully Schmidt Spiele will do an English language production. But this is language independent anyway, and there's an English translation on Board Game Geek, so you can learn how to play the game fairly easily through that. I don't know when it will be available, but I'm pretty sure they're going to want to get this to market pretty soon. Okay, so there's a huge recommendation from me. If you like this video, please watch some of my others. You may not find many reviews, but you'll just find me talking a lot about game design and mechanisms and making lists of my favourite games and my favourite types of mechanisms. Particularly, I'm a designer myself, so I love looking at things from that angle. So please watch my channel, Adam's Board Game Wales. Follow me on Twitter @BoardGameWales, and on Board Game Geek, I'm Adam78. Thank you very much for watching. All the best.